Clair Leahy's record as a softball pitcher, organizer, and coach is outstanding. He also authored a well-used softball reference entitled The Windmill Pitch. Clair spread his exceptional pitching talents over 30 years from the City League to Kawartha, Otonabee, Lakefield, Ennismore, and industrial levels. And he won a clutch of awards, including Mr. Softball 1985, Civic Sports 1989, Contribution to Minor Softball in 1991, Sports Person of the Year in 1993, City League Top Pitcher in 1974, Eastern Ontario League Top Pitcher in 1977, plus MVP honors in 1977 at the Ontario Finals and the 1981 Challenge Cup. Teams won titles with Clair on the mound, most notable of which was an Ontario Championship with Peterborough Teachers in 1977. He also coached an Ontario basketball titleist with the Fitzgerald Oilers in 1963. As a youth, Clair dominated running events from the 100-yard dash to the 1-mile run. For many years, he unselfishly donated his teaching skills to free clinics. Leahy is a remarkable athlete. Clair Leahy, thank you so much for joining me on Sports Legends. And your 100-yard dash and your 1-mile runs, what were those times looking like back in the day?
Since we did them all on the same day, the 100 and the 200 were fantastic. There was a 10-2 and a 21-9, but by the time we got to the mile, it was a little over 5 minutes.
Yeah, you'd be tired at that point.
You were tired. A few relays and triple jumps and so forth in the middle.
And you grew up on Duro Street in East City, close to the
Riverside Park. East City Bowl, Riverside Park, yes.
Yes, so in your book, it's half a mile away. So you could hear the crack of a bat every single day. And that just draw you in?
That plus the pop of the ball into the catcher's glove when Judd was pitching. I could hear those. Yes, that was very attracting.
And Ray Judd, if you read your book about softball in East City, it's Ray Judd's name is something that comes up more and more and more as you keep on reading it. And you know, this person must have had a huge impact on you. And the names actually that you describe, a lot of NHL players, Red Sullivan is in there, the Wassons are in there, a lot of sports names in Peterborough all were in that little hub. For you to experience all that, what did it do for your sports, I guess, passion?
Well, it motivated and inspired me. I was a great fan of Neil Thompson and Red Sullivan before Judd arrived, but once Judd arrived, he revolutionized the game. There were a few windmill pitchers before him. Primarily, it was the orthodox style, and his type of windmill pitching was just unbeatable. So that's what motivated all the younger pitchers watching him.
No, I didn't grow up exposed to softball where I was from. I don't know that a lot of people do now. It is waning away a little bit, right?
Unfortunately, more than a little bit, yes.
Now,
yes.
Just describe to me the different pitching styles.
Well, orthodox, you come around and the ball is thrown this way, whereas the windmill pitch, the arm goes around over your shoulder and released this way. And if you use the mechanics that Judd used, and the grips and so forth, you would be able to make the ball rise and drop, and the batters would be mesmerized.
How similar are the grips for like a fastball, a curveball, and the wrist action and the arm angle? That's all things that you think about throwing overhand. Are they the same but reversed?
Yes, and they're all different. The rise ball, you release the ball, and the ball spins backwards. The drop ball, it has to spin forwards, and the curve, it spins sideways.
So you're engineering, so for you guys, were you engineering your infield based off of how, say, Ray Judd was pitching? Did it go that deep? Or when you were pitching, did it go that deep that there was a shift? Or is that all modern baseball and fastball?
When Judd was pitching, the infield and the outfield could more or less go to sleep. But for most, yes, you would adjust to what pitch is being thrown. Lots of drop balls are going to meet ground balls, and you have a good shortstop behind you. That's what you need.
And for you, a guy who had speed, what drew you into pitching?
Ray Judd.
Yeah.
I was a shortstop earlier than that, but once I saw him pitch. And Jim Sleepdaw, he was here earlier. He was a slingshot pitcher. He was also extremely good. But
how do you explain slingshot pitching then?
Okay, well, the windmill, it goes all the way around. As a slingshot, you just go back and then through again this way. probably easier on the arm.
And to talk about rules and regulations for pitching, sometimes when I have seen it, the guys will kick off the mound and they'll be halfway to the batter's box by the time the ball is released. And the different styles as well. I know you described the old school style of keeping 2 feet on the mound at all times, but how did that evolve?
Well, in the beginning, that's the way it was, and that's the way it had to be. That's the way Judd did it, and I did that. Then they allowed you to take the back foot off, but still keep the foot on the mound. Then it came up from the States, the international softball. They were allowing to do what they called the crow hop. So you take a step and a little hop, and yes, you are halfway to home plate, giving a great advantage to the pitcher. You also can't pick up the ball when the pitcher's in the moving forward like that. You can't get the release point. And a lot of former players that played in my time and earlier would come over to the bowl recently to watch. They'd go home again saying that's not the game that I played, because the advantage is to the pitcher, and he's halfway home before he releases the ball. So I certainly was in favor of it the way it was when I started, and the way Judd did it and so forth.
Now the fence at East City Bowl, it's not as deep as Riverside Ballpark if you go a little bit further down.
No, most definitely not.
Yes. Now, what's the difference in hitting? And I know it's a pitching game, but just not the ball's just not carrying as far.
Well, ours is a 12-inch ball, and it's much bigger, so it doesn't go as far. And the fences now at East City Bowl, they're 215 down the line. When I started, they were 184. It was a lot closer, but the fences have been moved back, and the scoreboard is now out in right field. It used to be in center field. Many good adjustments. There's an electronic scoreboard. There's a new press box built there. East City Bowl is it's as good as you're going to get in Ontario, and unfortunately we don't have the fastball league to play in it.
You describe in your book 4,000 people being there. I can't imagine it, but take me to that feeling, those moments. At
that point in time, we also had stands in the third base line. And so behind home plate, down the right field line and down the left field line, but over and above that, around the fence. And there's a rock garden as you go from first base down to the parking lot, and the rock garden was filled. And they were just crowded into. It was a weekend tournament, 3 games, all extra innings, all 1-0. Judd winning 2, and Metro Zurich, a great pitcher from Sudbury, winning 1. So you couldn't get more exciting ball than that.
It's like a music fest concert now in Peterborough, but it would have been all crammed into that one little spot.
Yes, indeed it was. Yes.
And you described as well when you were a kid, cars would be parked up and down your streets and all around the block.
And you could see them bumper to bumper leaving to go out. And Duro Street was not a main exit from East City Bowl, but people, they would go across Hunter Street Bridge, and then they would come up Driscoll Terrace or Mark Street or Roger Street to try to get out of that area. Yes, it was quite amazing in those days, and Judd was the center of attention.
Yeah. What did that do for you when you did get a chance to play in front of those big crowds? I find it so unique that those big main events were happening like in Peterborough. It's awesome to think about how great it would be, how fun it would be for everybody experiencing it. But what did it mean to you? What did you feel?
Well, first of all, to be fair, the 4,000 was just that one weekend. We didn't have 4,000 at every game, but we did have very, very good crowds, and it was very important. It was wonderful to see the people up there, and in Peterborough. There were teams from Coburg and Lindsay and Curve Lake and so forth, but a lot of cross-city rivalry in Peterborough. The East City guys against the West End guys and so forth. And so it was lots of rivalry and very good action from the crowd.
And rivalry, how heated could it get between East and West or any other teams?
There were a few times when there was a melee. Pandemonium breaking out, but normally they didn't. Well, there's only one glove to drop, so they didn't drop the gloves very often.
And just arguing with the umpires, little chirping, the gamesmanship that went on. How competitive was it? Now these guys aren't professional athletes, but how professional was it, or how competitive was it? I mean,
Extremely competitive, extremely competitive. The third base coach would go in and argue with the umpire and get the old heave-ho, and sometimes be sent right out of the park. And Mark Donohue was one of the most controversial players who, in his day, he spoke up when he was playing. Then he became an umpire, and one of the most colorful umpires. And later he would sit in the stands and offer a second opinion to the umpires on all of their calls. And yes, there was lots of that.
Do a lot of the guys who played, is watching it or was watching it a big thing for you, just going down to the ballpark and checking out some of the younger guys playing?
Always. Yeah. No, I was on the executive for the last 20 years or so, and I did the play-by-play, from the announcer's booth, and kept score and made some of the write-ups for the Examiner. Yeah, no, I started at that when I was 8 or 9, and in 2018, when which was the last year we played, I was still there. It's
wow.
Very, very attractive to me.
How much do you miss it?
A great deal. But I'm involved in slow pitch now. And that's a wonderful game as well. The pitcher is not the dominant person in the slow pitch.
Have you seen some of the ways that in different slow pitch leagues they allow the pitchers to do like fake outs and behind the back throws? Have you seen some of that, the antics that go on in slow pitch now for the pitchers?
A little bit of that, yes.
Yes.
Yes, and there's a story I might tell you about behind the back in fast pitch. Wayne Phillips was my catcher for many years. I also wanted to be a pitcher, and he was a very, very entertaining player. And we were playing an exhibition game, an all-star team from the league, against the king in his court. Eddie Feiner had a four-man team, and he was, and he did all of that between the legs and behind the back and so on. And I had started pitching, and after an inning or two, Wayne came in for his turn, and the first pitch he threw was behind his back. And Eddie Feiner came over and just quickly said, "This is my show. You don't do that." So that was, but he did it. It was a strike. It was a nice pitch, and but that wasn't what Eddie wanted.
Yeah, and when it did come down to it, all those big names that rolled through there, like the Ray Judds and those types of names, what kind of respect did they get when they were just walking around? Was it, I know you say like the Michael Jordan or the Wayne Gretzky, and it seems like a bit of hyperbole when you talk about those big names, but was it really like that, like the ground that they walked on was holy ground essentially in fast pitch?
I think Judd would be held in awe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Jim Sleet Daw was a very good pitcher. And Wayne Wells defied Father Time. He pitched right into his 50s and pitched very well. So, yeah, we had Dave Rethowski, Brian Condon, Randy Fife, some excellent pitchers, Jim Fife in Peterborough, Jim Bell.
And there was one thing in your book, and I'm going to have to pick up the name here, but a barehanded third baseman, George Hawks, and they call it the hot corner. And the balls come flying down. You're as close to the batter's box as any position in the game because the first baseman's pulled back a little bit, but playing barehanded.
Okay, in the beginning, only the catcher and first baseman had gloves. I think it was around 53 when everybody else started to wear gloves, except for George Hawks. Now, George was my neighbor. Before we moved to Douro Street, we were on Armour Road, and George was my neighbor there. And he would just spit in his hands, and no matter how hard the ball was hit, he would catch it and play that way. And I don't think he ever converted to using a glove the way the others did. And Red Sullivan himself, maybe the best player ever over there, when he played first base, he wore a glove, but in the beginning, when he played second base, he played barehanded.
Okay, just take me through the pickup of a ball. So you're taught now to put your bottom hand down and to close it on the ball. So you're not going to do that barehanded, right?
You're going to pick it up like this.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, they were.
A lot of broken fingers.
And the yes. Yeah. And the outfielders could actually catch a ball with one hand, which is amazing. Yeah. It was that's the way it was when I first started. The catcher has a glove, first baseman has a glove, the rest did not.
How long or how big was your glove by the time you stopped playing? Was it like a 14-incher?
Yeah, no, they were a big one, and probably Red Sullivan brought the gloves back for the East City players from the States, and they were good big gloves.
And now there are professional leagues. I know it was in Rhode Island, so that's where Judd went to go play.
Correct.
Now, how big was the scene there compared to Peterborough? I know there were a lot of teams. You guys went Belleville, Sudbury, all over the place, but how different was it?
They would have better crowds than here. And first of all, when Judd left here, he went to Richmond Hill. He pitched for the Richmond Hill Dines. It again was amateur, but I'm sure he was paid. Pitchers were paid in those days, under the table, I suppose. And then when he went down there, it was professional. But Red Wasson went down to see him, and he said Judd had the same success in Rhode Island in the professional league as he did up here in the amateur league. He was that good.
And so you describe him as a guy who loved to practice almost as much as anything, except for on Sundays, because he was a Mormon missionary.
Yeah.
Now, that work ethic, did that kind of trickle down throughout everybody else playing in Peterborough?
Yes, and the Wassons. The Lakefield team he played for had 3 Wassons on it, and occasionally 4. And they put their game face on. They were always there to play. And I would go and watch Judd as he warmed up. He would throw the ball behind first base from right field into the fence, and you could see the ball come in and go up and go down, and it was just amazing to watch.
Yeah, rising fastball doesn't exist in overhand, but it's real in fast pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, no, his ball would rise a foot if he threw it high. The lower you throw it, the less it's going to rise. But he was, and he didn't have a slow ball when I saw him. A good pitcher will have a rise or drop and a slow ball. Ray did not have a changeup when I saw him. Maybe when he went to the States, he developed one.
He was just powerful enough that it wasn't necessary?
Yeah, that you would scarcely get the bat off your shoulders and it's popping into the catcher's glove.
Yeah, no need to be off balance. You're just pretty much afraid when you're in the batter's box?
Well, no, his control was impeccable.
Yeah.
Not only as a gentleman, he would not throw the ball at you, but he would maybe walk 1 or 2 batters in an entire season.
Yeah.
Which was unheard of.
And you almost beat him, and it was a team that you weren't actually a part of?
No, I was studying for a Latin examination, I think maybe grade 12, and Neil Thompson and somebody else came to the door saying, our pitcher didn't come. We need a pitcher right away. They didn't tell me who they were playing. So, mea culpa, I dropped my Latin and came down to the game, and I looked, and there's Ray Judd on the other mound. At any rate, though, it was a 2-0 game, and it was very close. Yes.
Does it make you, in that like grade 12, you're going up against this guy, and you're just coming off the couch essentially, or off the desk, wherever you were studying, off the table, and you come out and you see him standing there. Does that make you elevate your game a little bit? Is it nerves? What did that feel like?
Well, the guys told me, they said, just go in and pitch your game. You don't have to strike anybody out. Just do what you can. And, oh, by the way, don't give Judd anything to hit. Well, the first 2 times I didn't. The third time he hit one, it didn't go over the fence, but went off the fence. And it knocked in the first run, which was the only run they needed to win. I was in awe of him, of course. But the guys behind me, Neil Thompson and Wayne Haig and so forth, they were very supportive.
Now, there's a parking lot now over the right field fence,
That's
and
right.
the Lions Club over center field, left field.
Yes.
Were there cars in the parking lot back then, and how many windshields, if there were cars back there, how many windshields got broken?
There were a few, but the guys would often sit on the hood of their car with their gloves and be ready to catch a ball to save their windshield. But over and above that, yes, there were some windshields, and even the cars parked along Burnham Street, there were some windshields that were shattered.
Did it ever happen to a player in the game? Like, would somebody ever have been sitting in the dugout and a player on the other team fires one over the fence, and you're just like, oh, God.
That's ironic. No,
okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
They knew not to park there. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. There were other places to park if you were concerned about that.
Yeah.
And there were a few balls, might I add, that cleared the parking lot. And there is one, which I did not see, I believe 1947, Father Ray Garvey. This is before he became a priest, but he was playing for Knights of Columbus. And in a championship game, he hit a ball that, according to the story in the Peterborough Review, which was written by Father Bernard Heffernan, it went over the fence, over the parking lot, over the road, landed in the park, and rolled almost to the Otonabee River. Now that's quite a hit.
Yeah, it's downhill though. So
yeah, it's downhill. Now Father Garvey was my high school coach. Football, basketball, track and field. He encouraged me very much. But our phys ed, St. Peter's didn't have all the facilities that the new St. Peter's has. That was right down beside St. Peter's Cathedral there. And we would go down for phys ed classes to the orphanage, which was on McDonald Street. And Father Garvey would take a bat, and he would challenge any of the grade 9ers to try to strike him out, which they couldn't. Yeah, he was a very good athlete in his day. His brother, Fred Garvey, is in the Sports Hall of Fame here.
Okay, it's like challenging a group of kids to dodgeball now as the gym teacher or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, and there are a couple moments, again, from your book that I'd imagine are still resonating with you, but 1964, you were 1 out away from a no-hitter.
I was. The first game, I had 26 outs, and Jim McGrath came up to bat and had 1 strike on him, and he hit a single. It was right past me, out in, over second base, and then the next batter I struck out. And in the nightcap, the second game of the doubleheader, Sleep Daw pitched a no-hitter. So on that night, 18 innings, the 2 winning pitchers yielded no runs and 1 hit only, which I think is possibly a record. I don't know.
Did you get a hard time about being the guy who let a hit go through?
Yes, some of the yes. Yeah, that's true.
And you had to wait. Well, it's not really waiting, but a lot of people never do this. But 10 years later, you got it done.
In '74, I did pitch a no-hitter in that. I had quite a few no-hitters or one-hitters of that in the recreational leagues later, but in the city league, I only had the one no-hitter. Yes.
What's that feeling like?
Oh, it was fantastic because now that I've got 26 out, what am I going to do? But I did get the 27th.
Do you remember that moment? Was it a strikeout? Was it a pop fly? Was it?
I think it was just a grounder. Yeah.
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 So the nerves. Did everybody leave you alone? I know that's the way it works in baseball now. If it gets to that point, just let the pitcher go about their business.
I had it in the back of my mind, but nobody mentioned it. No.
Oh, really? Okay. No. Yeah, they knew. No. I think they would have known. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They would have known.
Would you describe the defense as exceptional that day?
Yes.
Yeah.
They better be.
Well, sometimes it's all pitcher. No. Sometimes it's those contact ones where that's almost the easiest way to do it, right? Or the fastest way to do it.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
Now, another change that you would have seen, I believe, would have been wooden bats to aluminum bats, to composite bats. How did that change the game for you?
They hit the ball well, and they hit the ball hard, and it's going to go farther. A lot of pitchers are afraid, the ball coming right back at you, so you have to be aware of that. No, the hitting became stronger. There's no question about that. Yeah.
Did the way the game was pitched, did it change as well? I know that for you, the way you look at the game is going to be from that angle, but did it change the way you were pitching?
Well, a rise ball pitcher gives up a lot of home runs, gets a lot of strikeouts, but gives up a lot of home runs. So with these bats, you're going to get more. So if you want to keep the ball in the park, you throw more drop balls, keep the ball down, let your second baseman and your shortstop field them, and throw the odd change up in to keep the batter off balance.
Okay, and now your positioning as well as a shortstop, because you mentioned you were a shortstop before you were a pitcher. How does the ball bounce in the infield? I'm assuming it was well groomed, but is the first hop going to be different than the second hop? Was there a way to attack the ball that you always thought of?
Well, you can't let the ball play you. You have to play the ball. but East City Ball is and always was very well kept. You would be hard pressed to find a better groomed diamond anywhere, and so the ball would react as it should, and the players knew that.
You had a chance to play with one of your sons in slow pitch?
I did.
Yes.
Yes. My son Aaron and I played on a team called the Screaming Beagles, and we played in the just men's open slow pitch, and that was in '93, I think. That was very exciting.
For me, one of the great things about baseball is the game the pitching changes or fast pitch, but it can always be close to what it was. A game like hockey or football, once you get past that competitive stage, it's never going to be the same because there's the physicality to it. But for you, did it change how much you kept enjoying slow pitch as you got older and kept on playing, or was it always that same feeling?
I would prefer the fast pitch, of course. Yeah, and I know it's pitcher dominated. It's maybe not as exciting where you don't see the scores 10-9 and 8-7, and you don't see the home runs. What you're seeing is the pitcher striking the batter out. I enjoyed that, but I know there are people who would prefer to see it with more action.
You mentioned the one player who pitched into his 50s.
Wayne Wells.
Wayne Wells, okay, so that's got to be difficult, and I'm just trying to compare this to baseball, which makes it make sense to me a little bit, but the torque on your arm is going to be your elbow, it's going to be your shoulder. On the windmill, where does it start to break down first, where I can't do this anymore?
It would be the shoulder, but and Wayne was extremely strong. He was very strong, and he threw a lot of rise balls and drops, and not a lot of change-ups. So he just defied Father Time. No other way to describe it. He was he didn't stop. He kept on going, and he would pitch the whole game, and he would pitch many games. And unfortunately, windmill pitchers did that. They did pitch too many games in a tournament and wore themselves down.
In all those tournaments, you travel around. Where did you go? Just around Ontario? I know there are a lot of championships listed, but how far did it take you?
There are today. In my day, there weren't, and we would have a local tournament in Belleville or Peterborough or Norwood or someplace, and the teachers' tournaments I went to were in Scarborough and Windsor. No, today they have the World Fastball Championships and different levels in them. So you can go representing your area. Also in my day, to get to the OASAs, you had to win your area. And then Peterborough would have to play against Oshawa, and then to Belleville, to Kingston, and so forth. Today, you can go to a tournament, and I guess you have to be the best in your city, perhaps. But you then can go to the OASA championships.
What's the most important championship that you won?
In basketball was the Intermediate B Ontario Championship in 1963, but in fast pitch it was the teachers tournament in 1977 in Windsor. We won the tournament twice, and we were in the finals again. And I did all the pitching, and I think I pitched 26 innings in one day in that tournament, so that was a tough one.
Were you icing the shoulder, or were you just like after the game? What's the routine like there?
They found a place in between games that had a tree, and they would put me under the tree to stay out of the sun on that day. And that was a lot of pitching. It was a few days before I could play again after that.
Yeah. Now I try and think about some local athletes recently as well, and one guy who played in this building was Josh Mcguire. I don't know if you ever got the chance to meet him, but he played for Team Ontario fast pitch, the former Peterborough Pete.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the most recent player.
I have never met him, no.
Down in Cobourg, I guess. So that's their little hot pockets of.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Cobourg and Cold Springs, which is between here and Cobourg. There's a man called Ewart Timlin, who organized softball. He himself was a pitcher, and his team. Cold Springs has a population of about 50, I think, and they won the Ontario Senior Championship and I think the Canadians, they were the finalists in that, and just amazing. I think Ewart was inducted into the Ontario Softball Hall of Fame.
And where would be some of the places where fast pitch is still a prominent game?
I would think Owen Sound still, and Kitchener-Waterloo. They would still have the fastball. And then there are other places that, like when the tournaments are on, there's a team from Kingston, but they will have picked up players from everywhere around to get enough.
Those road trips for you, and you guys had a bus sometimes?
Yes, we would have a van or a bus driving to those. Denny Scott, he was the sponsor of our team in the Eastern Ontario Fastball League, and he rented a bus, and he would the bus would be at the Memorial Centre at 5 o'clock, and guys came down there for work. He would have Kentucky Fried Chicken for them, so they didn't have to go anywhere for supper, and some refreshment after the game as well at the back of the bus. And we just leave your car there, and you get to the game in Napanee or Belleville or wherever.
The grease on your hands from the KFC would help pitching, maybe.
Yes.
Now, what little intricacies do people not know about that you have to play the game, you have to experience the game to know? What ins and outs do people not see from watching?
Well, Ray Judd had a small hand like mine, and he didn't like a brand new ball as I did. And he actually had somebody with a little bit of sandpaper to rub it on the ball and keep that in the glove. And I used to keep some orange peelings in the back of my pocket and rub that on the ball a little bit.
A little bit of tack?
Yes. And you could use rosin. And there was something called rock rosin, which was even better, and some of the people from the CG would bring that up to me. And in some places where you would play, they would keep throwing in a brand new ball that was really shiny and slippery, and even the best of pitchers like Ray Judd didn't like to grip that new ball.
You guys were like Tom Brady and Deflategate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Tom. That's still unresolved.
Yeah, no, yeah. So you got the balls, and I understand that you want to have your grips, but anything else when it comes to batting? Any trick plays? I know there are a lot of little sneaky things you can do in baseball. Did you ever pull off any hidden ball plays?
We didn't do the hidden ball, but I've seen Roger Nielsen's team, the Keene team that Roger coached, do that. The catcher had a potato, and he threw the potato to third base. Away over the third baseman's head, and the runner who was on third base immediately came home and was tagged out by the catcher who still had the ball in his glove.
It's not surprising that it was Roger Nielsen.
Not surprising that it was Roger. And we used to watch the pitcher and pick up their movements. And then when the batter was up, some batters just liked to hit rise balls or wanted to know when the changeup was coming. So we would call out their number when that pitch that they wanted was coming, and they would only swing at that one.
Oh.
So yeah, there was, but we didn't do quite what Houston did.
I need more on this potato.
Oh.
I need to know.
Okay.
How did it get?
He had a peeled potato.
Okay.
It was white like a ball.
Sure.
And there was a runner on third base. And so the time was called, and the catcher went back, and the potato was probably under his knee, and the pitch came in, and he caught it, and then he took that and he threw it wide to third base deliberately. The ball went over the third baseman's head. The runner came home and was tagged out.
Did anybody get ejected for the potato?
I don't think so. No. Roger was used to doing those kind of things.
That's very creative.
He was more than that. Yes.
Potato. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't even imagine that, to be honest with you. To keep a vegetable.
Well, Eddie Feiner and those pitchers, they would have the call time, of course, and he would go. He was wind up like that, and then the catcher would go like that in his glove.
Yeah.
And the batter would wonder what's going on there, And there's the story of the umpire saying strike two, and the batter would turn around and say, no, it was high, and the pitch wasn't even thrown at all. Eddie Feiner would just go like that, and then the catcher would snap the ball into his mitt.
Did the balls change over time, much like they do in baseball, a tighter wound, different cork?
There was a time when they were a little bit bigger. There was a Dudley ball that came from the States where the stitches were out, and it was a little bit larger, which really was a problem for me because I had there's a ball, the DNR 105L, and Joe Flagler and I, who like to throw rise balls, used that when we pitched in the EOFL, and each team brought in one of their own balls. So, but sometimes you would have to pitch what the other team used. And there wasn't much difference, but that one, it was bigger than some of the others. And yeah, that could be a problem.
What was practicing like for you? And because I don't know when you would have started throwing underhand or windmill, but I'd imagine it takes a long time to master that. But how much practice goes into actually perfecting it?
Oh, an awful lot of practice, and unfortunately, sometimes you're practicing your mistakes, unless you get a really good lesson. But I started when I was 9 or 10, and Rich Kavanaugh, who was my best friend and is down at the hall here a lot, we'd go out in my backyard and he would catch for me. And then when I was older and I got the lesson from Judd, again, Rich and I would practice every day, even the day of games. He was on the same team as me for many years, and we would practice at my house and then go down to the park and have a 9-inning game after that.
So in our questionnaire that was sent out to you before this, you talk about your parents and your family and just being Toronto sports fans.
Indeed.
And the Toronto Maple Leafs. Did you go to games at, and we're talking baseball, in the IBL, did you go to games at Christie Pitts?
No, I played at Christie Pitts.
Okay.
But no, but we did initially listen to the radio. My father was a great Toronto Maple Leaf fan, Punch Imlach. And we watched the Argonauts, or listened to them, and later watched, and the Leafs, of course. And the Toronto Maple Leafs was a baseball team playing against Buffalo, Rochester, and the Havana Cuba Sugar Kings. And no, I never got to see those. I certainly got to see the Blue Jays once they came. My family went up, my sons and I, to see the Blue Jays and the Raptors. Actually, my son Aaron and I saw the Raptors' 5th game against Golden State, which is the last time you will ever see Steph Curry and Kawhi Leonard playing against each other in Canada. Yeah. Because they're out in the West Coast now. And we lost that game. The Raptors lost, but it was to see those two guys together on the floor was amazing.
Who was your first sports hero?
Probably Red Sullivan and Ray Judd and Neil Thompson. They are actually before Judd. And in basketball, Johnny Amer, who's also in the Sports Hall of Fame here. He came from Hamilton to Peterborough, and he was just an outstanding basketball player.
How important do you think? So I bring that up because for most kids now, their first sports hero is going to be somebody completely inaccessible, maybe Steph Curry. Yeah. But for you, you grew up with those people at arm's length.
Yes.
What did that mean for you as or young Clair Leahy?
Oh, a lot. You could go down. Johnny Amer used to go to Inverleigh and shoot baskets. I would just go over there and shoot with him, or even just watch him. And Red Sullivan and those guys now, you could be in those days a bat boy for one of those teams, and they'd give you a quarter at the end. Or you could go down. Our scoreboard used to be in center field, and it was not electronic. So under the bridge, there was a little room, and they had a wagon with slate numbers and hooks on the scoreboard. And you could get that wagon and drag it out and put it, and you could sit at the scoreboard and watch, and you'd see, Red Wasson had a home run or Red Sullivan had a home run, and just to watch those games right up close and put the numbers up, and again get 50 cents at the end of the day for doing that for them. So lots of East City kids did that, and the Seabrook team, that was Red Sullivan's team, they practiced on Sunday mornings, and after they played, they would often go down and throw horseshoes down at the Riverside Park below, and I would be down there playing with my basketball. And I remember one day Red Sullivan came over and shot a few baskets with me, and that was just as high as you could get.
Yeah, well, that's a big name. That's
Red Sullivan.
Yeah.
He was everybody's hero.
Yeah, and there's
in East City. Yes.
There's a nice, I guess, cutout of Red Sullivan now in front of the bowl as well, right?
Oh, indeed, there is.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I lived on Douro Street, and to the west of Douro Street is Mark Street, and Bob Gainey lived on Mark Street, and to the east of it is Roger Street, and Red Sullivan lived on Roger Street. So we were surrounded by some pretty good athletes.
I've seen, just walking in the area, I've seen Bob Gainey just watching baseball. It's crazy. You're just walking by, and there's Bob Gainey just casually enjoying some baseball. And for you, you mentioned before that you've been walking a lot. Are you walking around the bowl, just kind of in that area?
I used to. I did the trail. I'm living up in the north end now, and I just walk around the area up there where I live. Yeah, no, the East City is a great place to walk.
Yeah.
And go by the park every time I can, to see the...
Did you go by and check out baseball in the summer?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
And you did some coaching as well? Just when you were a teacher?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, I coached the school teams for years and years in basketball and baseball and track and so forth. And and right now I'm a coach of a team in the senior ladies slow pitch league and the senior men's slow pitch league, and that's wonderful.
Yeah,
you keep active.
I've seen them early in the morning.
Yes,
weekday, yeah.
the ladies play at East City Bowl, and the men play at the Kinsman.
Yeah.
And
just being around the game.
For sure. Yes.
Does it flash you back?
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Yes. And good players in the league, like some of the guys can hit the ball a ton. There's Dave Borland, Steve Black, those are players in our league that just amazing.
Now, the competitiveness, which we touched on at the start of the interview, between guys in Peterborough, I would imagine that's those same guys who are playing now in slow pitch. Does the competitiveness bubble to the surface at all with the older guys?
It does, and I remember Red Wasson telling me a story of some guys, I won't say the names, but they came out to slow pitch when it was first started, and they just couldn't control their competitiveness, so they didn't continue it. Because in fast pitch, you're probably going to get all guys who are at least pretty good players, and then some very good players. In slow pitch, you've got guys who haven't played before, and they want to come out and give this a try, so you have to take that into account. Yeah. And if you're really competitive, that maybe makes it hard on somebody who's less skilled.
Yeah, okay. You see that in men's leagues, I guess, all across the board, and you just settle down a little bit.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's only a game.
Yeah.
We're only playing for a T-shirt.
And the chip truck is something else that you talked about. You mentioned you got paid in quarters. Did it go directly into the chip truck fund that was parked on Burnham?
Burnham Street, yeah. Initially it was Percy Harrison. And then the Floyds took that over. And it was amazing. You would go up there, and I remember Patty Thompson was the announcer. And Wayne Wells, when he was pitching, he would be going up to get some chips and bring them back. And Patty would say, now pitching Wayne, where's my chips, Wells? But that was a staple of the bowl, was the chip wagon.
Now, I guess the options are a slushie at the Circle K or the Lions Club. Do they sell fries there?
The Lions Club, indeed, and you can get an alcoholic refreshment there if you stay in that area.
Yeah.
There's also East City Tim's if you want to go for a donut. Yeah. And yes, there is the service station. And story about the service station, years ago when the East City Bowl wasn't maybe so well drained. There were puddles there. And they would get some gas and bring it back and put it on the puddles and burn the puddles off. Yes.
They pour gasoline on the puddles to evaporate the water.
And burn. Well, instead of match, burn.
Was that the town employees, or was that just the? Yeah.
No, that was unbeknownst to all.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very creative. A very creative solution.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Drainage system is much better now.
Yeah, no, it seems to be in great condition at all times, that ball diamond. Your favorite part about just fastball to begin with, just that one thing, is there one thing you can pick off that you say is your favorite when you're out there playing or remembering what it was like?
Still like to hear the smack of the ball going into the catcher's glove on the third strike. You know, guys like Wells and Judd, when you that's exciting. Or to see how smart the players are. If somebody bunts and there's a runner on first base, then the pitcher has to go and cover third. The third baseman comes in. The first baseman comes in. The second baseman goes to first. Just the smart plays that the guys know automatically what to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication involved in those,
indeed.
right?
Yes. Yeah. There was a shortstop, Robbie Magnus. I only played with him for a couple of years, but he would remind you, you know, you have to go to cover third. This guy hits here. You know, just so all you have to do is pitch the ball.
And very important in baseball or fastball because you can fall asleep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can fall asleep.
Yes. Yeah, the outfielders sometimes could be taking a course out there.
And now pitchers, sometimes they'll have quirks when they're on the mound. Self-talk is one. You'll just be talking to yourself. Or I don't know if you were the guy who was on the mound going, Clair, come on, you got to strike this guy out. But did you have anything like that?
Not out loud. No, I would whisper to myself, but...
Were you hard on yourself?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have the variety of pitchers that most did. Jimmy Bell, he could throw 5 or 6 pitches. I didn't have 5 or 6 pitches. I had maybe 2.5. And I developed a good slow ball at the end of my career when I didn't have anything else. But I should have, and I wish I had worked on a slow ball when I was younger. That really helps. Is
the release on a changeup, is it going to be similar to what a fastball, the changeup, would be like for a baseball pitcher, where it's going to be the same arm action and then you got a weaker grip on the ball to release it? Is that the same thing?
That's one of them, yeah. And again, the point you made, the same arm action, it has to be. Otherwise, if you telegraph your slow ball, it's not any good.
It's fastball the other way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Joe Flagler learned from Murray Payne, and I learned from Joe. And what you do for the slow ball is you grip the ball with your thumb and your ring finger only. The other 3 fingers are off and no part of the palm is touching. And when you come around, instead of releasing it with your palm toward the catcher as you do with all pitches, you turn your hand and you release it with your palm to second base, like that. Joe had the most amazing slow ball. And we played, the EOFL was a very, very, very good league. We played against some of the best teams in Ontario. And they couldn't touch. Joe had a rise ball.
So was that a backspin pitch then, with the way you're releasing it?
It would be like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the spin of the ball would have been
not a lot of spin. You want it to be dead, and you want it to be at the knees and down. It's the location of the pitch too that's important. But the good hitters, they would see his fastball, like his rise ball, and then the changeup, and they were just off balance, and that was exceptional.
And hitting the mound is going to be closer than it is in baseball, right?
Yes.
It's how much closer is it?
It was 39 feet when Judd first came. Then it moved to 42, and it's 46 now. But when he first came, like the batters are there. That's as far as you get. And the ball's in the catcher's glove, and then they moved it back and moved it back. And then, of course, they gave the guy the right to do the crow hop, and so you're back up to the 39 again.
If you got a radar gun out, what would Ray Judd have read?
Good question. I don't know the answer. I would like to think he'd be up in the 90s, but
with the big ball, it was up in the 90s?
But that's only me. I'm quite optimistic.
That would be.
So I really don't know the answer to that, but I would be anxious to find out if anybody knows how fast a fast pitch comes in. They told me that for the batter, you don't have as much time to get ready as you do in baseball because they're throwing from 90 and you're throwing from 46. So, but the 90 might be a stretch.
So it's but it's a relative speed, I guess, based on the closeness. So even if it is, say, 60 to 70 miles per hour versus a 90 mile an hour fastball, you cut the distance in half.
Exactly.
The reaction, I guess, identifying the pitch out of the hand is nearly impossible. with speed like
the way
that.
it
Yeah.
is, the way it is, yeah, the way it is today. But the way when we pitched, you couldn't do a lot of those arm movements, and you couldn't jump. So, like you could pick up Judd's ball, his release point, fairly well. You didn't have much time to do anything more than that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe we better adjust that 90 back to 70.
Well, it could have felt like 90.
That's the way it looked to me when he was
Yeah.
pitching anyhow.
Yes.
Yeah.
To most people, it would look like nothing at all. They wouldn't be able to see the ball, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything that you wish you had a chance to have done that you didn't get a chance to do?
Well, I wish I had developed a change-up and worked on my mechanics a little more. I think I telegraphed my pitches a little bit. And there were some pitchers who would say, Nolan Ryan's going to throw the fastball. It doesn't matter whether you know whether it's coming or not, you're not going to hit it. But I think I should have had better mechanics on that.
No, you're practicing that growing up, but
well, again, like I had about 15-minute lesson from Judd, and that was about it. And the rest of it is just trying to develop that on my own.
And I'm going to go back to Ray Judd again, and that's a name that you talked about it in your book about ranking people, and you're kind of remiss to do that because of how the game changes in different generations. Yes. But you talk about how he's the one name that is transcendent and kept on coming through.
Yes.
Do people still talk? Do people talk about him as much as it seems to me people talk about him still?
Well, the guys in the Hot Stove League down here certainly do. Red Wasson and Neil Thompson and Reggie Fowler and Rich Kavanaugh and so forth. And I certainly do. This book that I wrote that came from the things that Judd told to me. The Lakefield team were in the basement, and they normally would not make the playoffs. They had good hitters. They had Neil Wasson, they had Red Wasson, they had Cam Wasson, they had Glenn Padgett, Reggie Fowler. They didn't have a pitcher that was of Ray Judd caliber. And apparently Ray came to town. He had pitched a little bit in Lindsay, and he was looking for a team to play for. And he came to Mr. Seabrook in East City, who mentioned it to their team, and they said, well, they didn't need a pitcher. And even Red Wasson, I think it was Cam Wasson they mentioned it to, and he said, well, we do have somebody because they had a pitcher at the time. But Red had heard about him throwing a no-hitter in Lindsay, so he said, let's take a look at him. And he came in, and the first game he played against East City, which is the Seabrook Motors, he struck out 18, and they won the game. And from the time he came, which was partway through the season, they had to win every game for the rest of the season to make the last playoff spot, which they did. And then they won the semifinals, and then they won the finals, and they won the championship, and then they went on and won the Ontario championship as well. And a couple years in a row, and then Judd was drafted into the American Army, and then when he came back, they won again.
And this trophy came from Peterborough Mayor?
Yes, William H. Taylor was the mayor of Peterborough, and in 1921 he donated that trophy for the Men's Fastball League, and it has been presented every year since, right up until 2018. And it's just a marvelous trophy, perhaps the oldest trophy of its kind in Ontario, and maybe of all sports here in the Sports Hall of Fame. I don't know that for sure, but I was in constant contact with the Canada Softball Hall of Fame, and they had no knowledge of any league that was older than ours, and we were 98 years at that point in time. And so yes, that is a great trophy. I mean, in our leagues, in our domain, it was looked upon as the Stanley Cup.
And how many times have you lifted this trophy?
I've done that a few times, yes, and I drink a champagne out of the top as well. Yes, and I think Wayne Wells with 13 championships is the most. But we've had some dynasties in the league. The Lakefield team, not consecutively, but say within an 8 or 9 year period, they won it 6 times. And then the Douro team, under the tutelage of Ed Maloney, starting in 2004, they won it 6 times, and again, not consecutively, but maybe 6 times out of 7 or 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Other than that, it usually swings back and forth. You don't win it that many years in a row, but it's amazing, and it's going to be kept permanently here in the Sports Hall of Fame.
And in 2018 is the last year on this trophy.
2018 is the last
Is there
year.
any hope that it'll be, I guess, filled in at the bottom eventually?
There are some minor league teams now in Peterborough that I'm hoping in 4 or 5 years might be able to be at that level that we could start the league over again. Some in Curve Lake, some in Lakefield, some in Peterborough. And we could eventually reach our centenary, although there would have to be an asterisk beside it because it wouldn't be 100 consecutive years.
Mm-hmm.
It would be 100 years altogether, 98 in a row, and then a hiatus for a few, and then come back again. But another interesting aspect about the league, and if you look on there, it does say Peterborough Men's League. Katie Heffernan joined our league and played in it for several years. Up to that point, it had been a gender-exclusive league, men only, but she came in and she played second base and showed very well. And at that point, then we did change the league to the Peterborough Softball League. And she's the only girl that has played in our league.
Must have been an exciting moment.
Oh, it was. And in the ladies' ball, she was a catcher, but she played second base on this team, and she made a good showing of herself.
And so 2018, we're going to focus on that year a little bit again. But I understand, and when I first moved to Peterborough, I lived in East City, and I'd walk by and I'd see the fast pitch, and I started asking people about it, quite curious, and then the league actually came to an end. What happened in 2018 where 2019 didn't happen?
Well, we struggled to get 4 teams, and at times we didn't even get that. And we brought in some younger teams who, we have a rule over there, 7 after 5. If you're winning the game by 7 runs at the end of the 5th inning, they call it. Well, sometimes teams were winning against the younger teams by 15 runs at the end of that time. And people didn't want to stay and watch that. The teams died off. We had Curve Lake teams, we had Coburg teams, we had Lindsay teams, Ennismore teams. Yeah.
Have you got any last comments on your sports legacy?
Well, I just thank God for having had the opportunity to pitch in that league for as long as I did, and to be a part of it for almost my lifetime. Well, it's wonderful.
Well, Clair, thank you so much for your time and your stories on a sport that I guess not a lot of people are familiar with anymore.
Thank you for having me.